Meeting to order. Our first resolution on the agenda, I'm sorry, Councilman Garrett.
Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of choked up right here. Just so I can say, I smell mothballs or something. I think I'm getting on either side of me. There's a coat that they've got to be at least 30 years old. These sweaters that are on either side of me. So if I cough a little bit, it's just because this mothballs smelling that I'm. Next order, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Stein.
I just thought he was trying to get the bad taste of Coach Dooley out of his throat.
All right, gentlemen. The first resolution we have on the agenda is RS 2012-488. The sponsors are Council Lady Leinster and Matthews. Approves an economic and community development incentive grant to the Industrial Development Board for the benefit of HCA Holdings Incorporated and its affiliates. Before we have any discussion on this bill, I would like to entertain a motion. And just a point of personal privilege, since Council Lady Leinster is the main lead sponsor on this bill, if I could give her the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two guests in the audience. If anyone has any direct questions they want to ask, I hope with your permission.
Could you make a motion?
Make a motion to approve, please.
Could a committee member make a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded by a committee member. Council Lady Leinster, you continue.
Yes, if anyone has any burning issues, questions, you know, the Vice Mayor likes for us to discuss this in committee, but there are three people in the audience who could give some very pertinent information if anyone has a question.
Thank you, Council Lady. Before we have any other questions from committee members or council members, I would like to ask Mr. Reebling if he could explain. Councilman Stein.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask, the resolutions we will be deferring. I mean, could you outline what we are doing? And then my suggestion, Mr. Chair, was going to be that if there was a way to, depending on what we are doing, to group them together and have one debate on the entire package rather than do each segment of the package, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yes, there is a way to take them all together. There's a substitute for the Urban Development Action Grant Appropriation Resolution, which would need to be handled here first. The committee will make a recommendation, if it's the committee's desire, on all three today. Tomorrow night, the resolutions will be deferred to track with the pilot ordinance on third reading. So the committee can go ahead and take action, and then on the floor tomorrow night, the two resolutions would be deferred.
So pilot's on second reading tomorrow night?
Correct.
Yes. All right. Would the committee like to go ahead and take up the substitution first so we could discuss all three together?
So moved.
Second.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded on the substitute. Does anyone have any questions about the substitute? And John, do you want to explain the substitute?
The substitute is on Resolution 489. It adds an additional $50,000 appropriation from the UDAG funds to be used for job recruitment and job fairs associated with the project for residents within the poverty areas of Nashville.
All right. Any questions on the substitute itself? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Substitute passes. Now we could take both these resolutions together, and
yes.
Then we have the pilot bill is on second reading.
Yes.
Is 297.
Yes.
All right. So we'll have discussion on resolutions 2012-488, 2012-489 as substituted, and also BL 2012-297. At this time, and they all concern the HCA pilot legislation and the resolutions.
So we have a motion.
We have a motion on all three and a second. All right. Council, do we want to have Mr. Reebling explain at this time? Mr. Reebling, could you for us?
With all due respect, I'd like to defer to my colleague, Mr. Wiltshire, to walk through this. I think it's his role.
Matt, you want to?
Okay.
That'd be easier.
Where should I go?
That one's on for you.
So there is a pilot ordinance that's on second reading that provides up to $3 million of real property tax abatement on the development, which, as most of the folks here know, is 2 office buildings and an associated parking garage. We don't know exactly what the property will be appraised for, given that it hasn't been constructed yet, and they're still finalizing the designs on the property. But based upon the estimated $265 million construction costs, we're estimating that it will be appraised and assessed at such value that the real property taxes will be in excess of $3 million a year. And so the analysis that Mr. Cooper has put together indicates that the incremental real property taxes over the period of the pilot agreement will be approximately $17 million. The term, just so everyone knows, is for 15 years, which matches the term of HCA's or Parallon and Sarah Cannon's leases on this property. They have a couple of extensions beyond that period, and if they exercise the first of those extensions for 5 years, the pilot agreement would continue on for 5 years. It is contingent upon them remaining as tenants of the property. So the $17 million incremental property taxes is on the real property. There is no abatement on the personal property taxes, which is estimated to create an incremental $2 million of property taxes to Metro. So that's the pilot agreement. There are a couple of additional features of this. If the property is assessed at a value that creates less than $3 million of incremental real property taxes, there is an ability to carry that forward for a period of time until which the property is valued at such an amount that it creates more than $3 million, at which point they could use some of that reserve that they built up. So as an example, if it were the real property taxes on the property were $2.8 million, that $200,000 that they didn't realize in value would carry forward until it was appraised at more than $3 million, and then they could sort of think of that as a bank account that they could pull a reserve down from. That expires at the termination of the deal, so either at 15 years or if the extensions are executed at 20 years. So they can't carry it forward beyond the term of the agreement. And so that's the pilot agreement. There are there's been discussion about additional property, potentially a hotel, anything else. That would not be covered under the abatement if that were to come to fruition. And I'm happy to pause now and answer any questions, if that's appropriate, on the pilot agreement, or go forward with discussion of the UDAG grant and the job grant. The UDAG grant, as amended, is for $1,050,000. As I think this council is aware, the UDAG funds are funds that were created in connection with the agreement with the existing convention center, the existing Nashville Convention Center. Those funds are replenished, not replenished, but there's a $500,000 amount that is paid by the Renaissance into a fund, half of which goes to affordable housing and half of which goes to economic development, and that amount has some funds in it. And so this $1,050,000 will come out of those funds. Those funds have to be spent in the pocket of poverty, and this property is in fact in the pocket of poverty. The final component of the incentive grant is for jobs. This amount is paid based upon the number of incremental Davidson County positions that are in these 2 buildings, and it's $500 per incremental job. As a reference point, Sarah Cannon Research Institute, which currently has approximately 200 employees, those 200 employees we're not paying for. So all of the Parallon employees are currently in Williamson County or outside of Davidson County. So when those jobs move into Davidson County, we would be paying for those jobs, and then any incremental positions that are added. And as you all have seen, the estimates are that it will be 2,000 jobs approximately. So if it were in fact 2,000 jobs that were created, the payment in a year would be $2,000 minus the 200, so 1,800 times $500, and that's what will be paid. That'll be measured annually and will be paid out. And so that's the job grant, and that extends for 7 years, and it's from 7 years from whenever HCA decides to start. So if they're adding positions more slowly, that may not start for several years. As you all know, the expected move-in date to this facility is in the spring of 2015. The earliest, presumably, that they would want to start measuring jobs would be December 31st of 2015, but it could be later than that, and so those payments would not come until the beginning of the following fiscal year for some time. One other aspect of the pilot agreement that I've failed to mention is there are benchmarks that the company is required to meet, and if they do not meet those job benchmarks, there is a penalty and a reduction in the abatement. So that amount ramps up over time, but if the company misses by 100 jobs, then they lose $300,000 of the abatement in that 1 year. So if they miss by effectively, if they miss by 1,000 jobs, there would be no abatement in a given year, and that is measured each year. So they could miss it 1 year, and then the next year, if they meet their benchmarks, they wouldn't be penalized in subsequent years. So there is a penalty, and there are standards that we're holding the company to in order for them to receive the full real property tax abatement.
Thank you, Mr. Wilshire.
And yes, sorry, one other aspect, there are DBE requirements that we've established for the construction. There's a goal of 20% that we've set, and we've put in place some mechanisms for them to measure and report to the Minority Caucus their meeting progress on those goals.
All right. Council Lady Allen.
Two questions. One, can you explain a little bit more about the pocket of poverty? Is there any kind of requirement to, is it simply a location, or is there anything else other than the $50,000 for job recruitment that actually deals with alleviating poverty?
Yeah, so I would, this is a pot of funds that's administered by MDHA, so I should defer to a representative of MDHA to sort of get into all the details, but effectively, that's correct. It needs to provide economic development within the pocket of poverty, which is a geographically defined area. This dates back to the late 1980s, I believe, when it was created, so it may, the map is from that period of time, but those funds need to be expended and sort of seek to provide economic development within the pocket of poverty.
And then my other question was, just to clarify, if I've understood all these numbers correctly, if we did nothing, that piece of property brings in $128,000 per year.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct? And if we spend a certain amount of money with these grants and forego some property tax, then we know we're bringing in at least several $million a year for a total of $17 million, or?
I wouldn't necessarily say we know that we're going to bring that amount of money in, because we don't. By law, as you know, okay. It is the assessor's office, I guess, who assesses property, and we don't know exactly what it would be assessed for. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be quite that definitive about it, but it is our best estimate, based upon the information we have today, that it would create $17 million of incremental real property taxes over the period of the agreement, and in addition would create $2 million of personal property taxes on desks and computers and other sort of personal property over that same period. Just for clarification, there would be 2,000 employees we're estimating that make, I believe the company had estimated, between $85,000 and $90,000 a year in terms of average salary. There's obviously a range of salaries, but those figures that are provided in the analysis that Mr. Cooper put together do not include any sales taxes off what they might be buying for lunch, or property taxes off homes that they would purchase in Davidson County, or any stimulative effect of that money flowing through the economy, any sales taxes on purchases made at those headquarters, or certainly any economic development that might occur in the surrounding area from businesses that want to be located close to them. So those funds are beyond the scope of the analysis that we've provided, but we believe would have a substantially stimulative effect on the economy in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Councilman Stein.
Thank you, Matt. I want to go back just one, because there is always great confusion over this notion of incentives and abatement and things. The abatement is abating the future property taxes that would be generated by this project. This is not, when we talk about a $60 million benefit to them, that's not $60 million we're giving them. It's $60 million that will be abated from the potential for property taxes to be generated by this project, correct?
That is correct. You can't give up what you don't have, and we don't have that today.
Okay. And I don't want to rub this into my friends who have been trying to work on this property for a long period of time, but it's been, what, 15, 18 years that that property has been undeveloped? I mean, it's been a long time. Excuse me. I'm sorry. That it has been in a current state, and it's generating 4 years, okay, but it's been a while. So the bottom line is, based on the estimates of property taxes there, if it stays undeveloped, over the length of this deal, we're talking about approximately a couple of $1 million it would generate undeveloped.
Yes, sir.
All right, and the $17 million fee, which you correctly say is an estimate, let's say it's 16, let's say maybe it's 18, or maybe it's just 15, is over and above the abatement that will come to this city government.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This particular development and this project that's before us seems to me to be based on the high quality jobs, the potential economic growth, the wonderful prospects of that infill development, coupled with the fact that we are doing it with a company that was born here, raised here, and has been so much a fabric of our community, seems to me to make this, and I know that the magnitude of this is large, but it seems to me to put all those things together to make this perhaps the most attractive of these arrangements that we've seen, and I congratulate all those that have worked on it.
Thank you, Councilman Stein. Councilor Berry.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Wiltshire. I'm over here, just in case you can't see me. I wanted to just ask you a really simple question, and first of all, I want to preface that with the fact that I do appreciate all of the hard work that this is that you've put into this, and so simplify this for me, because I think a lot of times people at home just want to hear it really in simple terms. What is the amount that the Davidson County taxpayers are on the hook for this deal, and what is the projected offset of the amount of this deal that's going to, you said 17 million, is that the number that we're going to, quote, make on this?
Yes, I mean, in terms of cash out of the pocket payments, it would be $500 times the number of incremental jobs that are created at these headquarters. I mean, that's the sort of payment coming out from Metro. So I believe the analysis indicated that was at 4.9 million. I apologize, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, that's exactly what it says.
So Davidson County is on the hook for cash payments out of the finance department, out of the treasury, of $4.9 million. As over the next 7 years, or the 7 years beginning when the company decides to start receiving those payments, based upon the estimated number of incremental jobs that are added. The offset to that, exactly, you're right, is the estimated $17 million that we would take in from the incremental property taxes. Again, after you factor in the abatement, the $17 million we get from real property taxes, plus the $2 million that we get from personal property taxes, and then the plus up beyond that. So essentially, you're getting then 19 to give up 5.
Right.
So you're 14 million to the good based on that analysis, and then the plus up on that is all of the homes that are bought, the businesses that are developed, the sales taxes that are generated, and then obviously the stimulative effect of having 2,000 high-paying jobs in the county.
Sure. And so when you look at the scope of this deal, which is a big deal on this piece of paper, it looks like a lot, but I think it's really clear that the benefit to Davidson County taxpayers is much greater than what they're putting into it, which I think looks like an incredibly good deal, not to mention the fact that you are bringing all these incredible jobs into Davidson County to a swimming pool that currently exists. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Berry. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you. Matt, a couple questions, and well, let me address the first one to Rich or Greg, because I'm assuming there's no assessor of property here to ask any questions about the appraised value of this building, but you're basing $265 million estimated construction cost. The building itself is going to appraise for less than that. So my first question is why?
Well, what I've estimated in talking with the assessor, and obviously it's pretty difficult to assess a building that's not been built yet or actually in final design, but he said it's reasonable to assume that the building itself would be approximately $200 a square foot in value, give or take a little bit, but $200. It'd be about 900,000 square foot building. Yes. So that's about $1 million. That's $180 million of value there. And then on top of that, there's going to be probably about a $40 to $45 million parking garage, which is a critical element of this building, this whole development. Without the parking garage, the building doesn't get built. The development doesn't occur. So add those up, that's $225 million of value. And I think that's the number that in talking with Mr. Cooper, I think he used in his analysis. I believe that's correct, John. I want to speak to you.
I used with
yeah. So that
little smaller total
850 instead of the 900, and give or take, you end up with about $4 million in property tax that should be generated from that development.
All right, because I was going to do the math there. At 40% commercial rate is the assessed value, times 4.66 is our current rate.
Right, it comes out to be right around $4 million.
So we're making $1 million more on property tax.
That's yeah, possibly. Now again, we can't
theoretically based on
George what Mr.
estimates.
Thinks it's going to be. That's correct.
Okay,
yeah, that would be accurate.
Now, shifting gears then, the employees that are at Parallon now that are working in the Williamson County location, when they transfer into the new location, only the Davidson County jobs are counted, or the residents? None of those, just incremental new employees?
All of those are all the Parallon because they're moving into the county.
Williamson or Davidson.
All the Parallon. So do we know where the Parallon employee base is now, residents, county of residents? But we have HCA folks here that could get that information to us, I assume.
Yes, that's correct.
So I want to make that.
Any of the HCA representatives want to come and speak to that?
We have a combination of the residents that are working currently in Williamson County. A lot of those are based in Williamson County and Maury County, and some are in Davidson County residents today.
Can we get an approximate percentage of those? If those are your three primary counties? Those
are the three primary counties, and I know the primary counties are Williamson County and Maury County, but I'm not sure of the exact breakdown there.
Okay, which that's a little disturbing to me
Well, Councilman, the one thing I would say to that is, obviously we'd be hopeful that more of those people would move into Davidson County and therefore, boost home values here.
Does this bill require them to track that and provide that information?
No, sir, it does not.
Over time, could it?
I'm not sure.
John?
The answer to that.
Yeah, theoretically, the bill could be amended to add some additional reporting requirements.
That may not be helpful for this particular bill, but on future bills that we say, hey, look how many Williamson or Maury County employees chose to relocate into Davidson County and be closer to home. That's a great selling point down the road, and I'd like to know that information. Is there a requirement on the building of the building that the materials be purchased in Davidson County?
No.
No, sir, there's not.
Have we on other bills, seem like on something we did on Old Hickory Boulevard or something, there was some requirement?
There's some legal issues with doing that. If you require that materials be purchased in a certain county. So that was kind of talked about on one of the previous deals, but that was amended out because of legal concerns. The contract.
Yeah, we actually had that as a provision in the Life Point provision, which
I knew it was there somewhere that
Yes,
we had talked about.
That's right. That's right.
Because their problem with that is that if Nashville starts requiring those kind of things, then Memphis is going to start requiring it, and then it becomes a complete a mess for them, I guess is what they're thinking.
And Nashville contractors lose out when they're bidding on process. There are reciprocity laws that various jurisdictions have.
I thought that had to do with subcontractors more than building materials itself. Can we strongly suggest that they considered, all things being equal, drywall in Davidson County the same price as drywall in Murray County, that they purchase the Davidson County drywall? I guess I've just made that comment and done as far as you're comfortable going there. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tiger. Council Lady Langster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Matt, I wanted to ask you, this construction project, it is in the area considered a pocket of poverty. Is it also in the Midtown? Is it considered Midtown?
Yes, Council Lady, it is.
Okay, and I believe it is located in District 21, the entire project, including the parking garage?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay. By it being in Midtown and considered a pocket of poverty, Council Lady Allen touched on it. Does that allow for any other accessible grant funds through MDHA or whatever?
I would have to defer to a representative of MDHA. I'm not aware of any others, but I would want to defer to them before I answer.
What about it, Mr. Reebland? Does it, because of it's in those two areas, does it open itself up for more money?
I don't think so, and I think we've negotiated a pretty good deal. I don't think we need to negotiate anymore. No, I'm not aware of any other funding sources other than conventional financing that this project would be eligible for.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Council Lady Langster. Council Lady Evans.
Thank you, Chairman Matthews. Two questions for you, Matt. Following up on what Charlie said, I'm not sure I heard right. My friend Leslie, who lives in Green Hills and works at Parallon, and has lived in Davidson County as long as she lived in Nashville, does she count as one of those new employees?
Yes, ma'am, she does, because her place of employment is shifting from Williamson County. So residency is not factored into the definition of incremental employees currently in the bill.
Okay, so all the calculations you referred to, buying new homes, sales tax, et cetera, those really wouldn't happen for those employees because they're already doing that for the most part, right?
I think what I was referencing was, I mean, if each of the 2,000 employees spends $8 for lunch, for 250 days a year, or whatever purchases that they would make based upon their place of employment as opposed to their residency. That's really what I was referring to in that case.
So she's obviously not going to buy a new house in Davidson County because she already lives here.
Correct, right.
Okay.
I mean, certainly for the 1,000 incremental employees, I mean, you heard the representative from HCA indicate that the two largest counties of residency for those employees currently working at Parallon are Williamson County and Murray County. With the location in Midtown, in Council Lady Langster's district, we're certainly hopeful that they will be able to pull employees from across the county and widen their employment base that they can pull from. And that's one of the reasons I think that the company found, or the two companies found this location to be attractive. And further, in terms of the effect on housing in Davidson County, I think certainly we would hope that those folks would choose to live in this great county.
Okay, so could I get the number of people who currently live in Davidson County and are employed currently at Parallon?
I think that's what Councilman Tigert asked for, and I will see what we can get from the company.
Okay, last question. If we don't approve this transaction, do they not build the project? Does our vote make or break the project?
That is my understanding, that this deal, the financing of this transaction necessitates the incentives that are provided by the deal. I mean, I can't speak definitively, but that's my understanding that this transaction is dependent upon the incentive package put forth in this proposal.
HCA, is that your opinion as well, that you walk if we don't approve it?
Yes, the mechanics of this, the incentives associated with this deal actually, help to make this project. So all of that was factored in, and our moving forward on the deal in our lease is contingent upon the incentives.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Evans. Councilman Dominic.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, I have a quick question. I know the part of the deal is that they have a $5 payment for employees, full-time employees. The Dell deal had a similar deal, and I've had some residents in my district that worked for Dell, and many times they would work for them about a month before that deadline, the date to qualify for that payment, and then a month later they'd be laid off. Is there some sort of plan in place to prevent that from occurring in this case, so that we actually have full-time employees working that are getting the $500 incentive per employee?
I don't believe, I'm looking at it, I don't believe there's a specific sort of provision in there. This is something that's measured once a year. I would suspect that the incremental cost to the company of hiring someone new, employing them, going through the process of getting their payroll and everything set up would not be worth $500 to the company, but I can't speak to that. It sounds like a tremendous headache to me, given the types of employees who will be in this location. But I don't believe that there's a specific requirement that these folks be employed for a specific period of time, to answer your question. I'll defer to the company on this.
Yes, you are correct that, obviously hiring an employee, we would incur more costs than the $500 to bring an employee on for a period of time, and then to, let that employee go after we had made that count. And also, it's as you're looking at that, that's incremental employees, and it's judged on an annual basis.
I just want to make sure there was some response to that, because it has been an issue in my community, because some of them were employed by Dell, and they were employed for about a month and a half to 2 months, and then they were laid off, and they'd go through the same process every year.
Well, Councilman, I think legal has a response also.
I think it's a great question. I would contend that there are provisions in the agreement of a more general nature that require good faith, and there are some. Certainly, we have the option to take a look at behind what numbers they are going to be presenting. And so, if they were going to do something like that, I would have no problem saying this doesn't fly. So I appreciate the comment, and we'll be on the lookout for that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'm not suggesting HCA would do that. I just know that I've dealt with that personally, because Dell was across the street from the district I represent.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no one else in queue, I'd like to call the question. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. All two resolutions and the bill passes. Next resolution, RS 2012-490. Sponsors Matthews and Bennett, approves an amendment to a state grant of $789,690 to the Davidson County Juvenile Court to enforce federal and state mandated child support guidelines concerning children born out of wedlock by replacing the docket detail form used in reporting to the state. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-491, sponsors Weiner Matthews, approves a contract between the Metro Health Department and Vanderbilt University to provide information about the federal Women, Infants, and Children Assistance Program to eligible individuals. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-492, sponsors Weiner Matthews, approves an amendment to a state grant to the Metro Health Department for breast and cervical cancer screening by decreasing the amount of the grant by $20,400 for a new grant total of $262,200. It's been properly moved and seconded. Council Lady Allen.
I just wondered why it had been decreased. Is there an explanation for that?
Is there anyone from the Health Department?
Mr. Chairman, Council Lady Allen, we are subject to state budget cuts just as we are to others, and this is one of them.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-494, sponsors Matthews and Bennett, approves an intergovernmental agreement between 493. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back to RS 2012-493. Sponsors Weiner Matthews approves 2 amendments to a federal grant to the Metro Health Department to enhance access to community-based cares for low-income individuals and families with HIV by transferring $190,327 of unspent funds from the previous year to the current grant budget for a new grant total of $4,730,915. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-494. Matthews Bennett approves an intergovernmental agreement between Tennessee State University and the Metro Police Department for the use of off-duty police officers. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, I have. Councilman Maynard.
I just wanted to let everyone know, if they didn't know what a step show is, that the men of Omega Psi Phi actually provide stepping. The Kappa Alpha Psi, they dance with canes, but Omega Psi men actually do stepping, and I wanted to make sure that all the council persons understood the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Maynard. I'd like to note that Kappa Alpha Psi also has a higher IQ. All those in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-495, sponsors Matthews, approves a state grant of $1,903,054 to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish programs and deliver services to adult workers. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-495, sponsors Matthews, approves a state grant of $1,829,917 to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish programs and deliver services to dislocated workers. Second. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-497. Approves and sponsors Pridemore, Potts and Matthews, approves an intergovernmental agreement between the State Department of Transportation and Metro government for the resurfacing of Myatt Drive at a cost to Metro of $188,300. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-498, sponsors Bennett, Potts, and Matthews, approves a second amendment to the Safe Routes for Schools project agreement between the state and Metro Public Works to construct sidewalks along Oakwood Avenue in the vicinity of Tom Joy Elementary School by extending the project completion date until October 20th, 2013. Second. Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-499 authorizes the acquisition of 20 additional easements for the Lakewood Laterals and Rehabilitation Project at a cost of $20,000. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-500, well, 24,500, is that correct? Yeah. Sponsor Matthews authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle Metro government's personal injury claim against David Gares in the amount of $9,898.61. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-501, sponsors Matthews, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle Metro government's property damage claim against Donna Pippins in the amount of $5,201.99. Been properly moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2012-502, sponsors Matthews, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claims of Robert and Lynn Robinson against the Metro government for the total amount of $113,443. It's been properly moved and seconded. Councilman Tiger.
Yeah, I just had a question about the claim that this was caused by the brakes going out, but then the examination of the vehicle showed that there was no problem. What is the response or thought about that?
I'm not sure if we have a representative from Public Works here or from...
Yeah.
Oh, Randy's here. Randy, do you...
I cannot answer the question on the brakes, Councilman Taggart. I'm aware that that was alleged by the employee involved that the brakes did not work.
Yeah, there's
here. He was there at the... He was director at that time.
Councilman, at that particular time, the sergeant and Metro Police, Marvin Keith responded to it. It was a fully loaded trash truck. The truck had just come out that Monday morning for prior of brake damage. When Marvin investigated everybody, they couldn't see where the damage or where the brakes did give out, but the driver, trying to avoid this, is fully loaded trash truck, hit the guardrail to try to avoid it. Marvin Keith, who's a sergeant over patrol at that particular time, investigated and wrote in his report, which we submitted, it was an accident. He said, Billy, this gentleman tried everything he could to avoid it, the whole thing, and hit the guardrail and all, and it was a pure accident. They never could, from looking, be able to determine if the brakes did or did not. And this gentleman was over a 40-year employee, never had an incident in his entire career. Since then, he has retired. But as Marvin said, you know, when we looked at it and he documented, because he kept checking it for the police department and for any liability, he said it was just a pure accident on a loaded trash truck in a heavy area.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Councilman Tiger. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution passes. We're on to bills on second reading. The first is BL 2012-241, sponsors Domini, amends the Metropolitan Code to require the annual contract for services between the Metro government and the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce for the Partnership 2020 Economic Development Program to be approved by resolution of the Council. It's been properly moved. I'll entertain a second. It's been properly moved and seconded. Discussion. With the sponsor, Councilman Domini.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to move to defer this bill indefinitely. There's a substitute that we had to draft as a totally separate bill because of the caption on this particular bill that addresses the issue of accountability in our sole source contracts. And so I would move that we defer this indefinitely.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded to defer this indefinitely. Any other discussion on indefinite deferral? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passed. Well, bill is deferred indefinitely. Sorry about that. BL 2012-294, Councilman Domini's the sponsor of this bill, amends the Metropolitan Code to require certain sole source contracts to be approved by resolution of the Council. It's been properly moved and seconded. Council Lady Berry.
Oh, actually, is the sponsor going to talk?
Yeah, I was calling Councilman Domini.
Yeah, there's a proposed amendment. If I'll have John, if you would explain what that does and why it's being recommended, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, the amendment clarifies that this would apply to sole source contracts, whether they're done through the procurement process or not. For example, the contracts for economic development services do not go through the purchasing agent, but they are sole source contracts in excess of $250,000. So it clarifies that all of those type contracts would be included.
Okay, and can you share where that originated, that request, just to clarify that?
The request, well, I suggested the amendment to ensure that the contract, that the ordinance covers those contracts in question. I think the language of the bill as is would anyway, but this would further clarify that.
All right. Well, I ask for approval of the bill. This is not specifically targeted at a particular entity, but just bringing accountability to our sole source contract so that there is at least a limited level of review by this body for anything over $250,000. And that's, in a nutshell, what the bill does, and I ask for your approval, support.
The amendment's been moved. Do we have a second on the amendment? Been properly moved and seconded. All in favor of the amendment? All opposed? The amendment passes. Now we're back on the bill as amended. Council Lady Berry.
Thank you, Chair. I think this question is for Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, you mentioned in the analysis that there have been 2 sole source contracts previously. We only have 1 right now. What were the previous ones?
I don't know what the contracts specifically were for. I asked the purchasing agent, Jeff Gossage, for a list of those. Now, those numbers would not include the Chamber of Commerce contract because that was not done through the purchasing agent. Typically, these are for software and for software maintenance and services. Those would be the only ones I can think of that would be over $250,000.
So currently the purchasing agent who has responsibility for our contract negotiation uses a process that to go out to bid for contracts or decides that this needs to be a sole source, but there's still a contracting process, correct?
Correct.
And this particular piece of legislation looks like it's just targeting one particular contract.
Well, it's targeting any sole source contract over $250,000. Now, there are few of those that we enter into.
Okay, so all of those would have to come here.
Correct. Now, according to the purchasing agent, that was only, I think in the past 3 years, that's only been 5 contracts.
Mm-hmm. And then the council would have to have the expertise to know whether or not the technology contract with a vendor, we'd have to have vendors come and give presentations. I'm trying to understand what the process would be for our consideration.
Well, that would be up to the council to decide what type of information needed to be presented, but before the contract could be entered, the council would have to sign off on it.
And how long does a typical process take now with the purchasing agent, and how long would it take potentially with the process that this bill would address?
I don't know how long it takes the purchasing agent. This would add 2 to 3 weeks to the process.
Just 2 to 3 weeks. Okay.
Since it's just a 1 reading.
So it just would be a resolution?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Berry. Councilman Garrett.
John, would this include what the school board buys?
No, they do not operate under our procurement system unless they choose to, which is not very often.
Thank you, Councilman Garrett. Councilman Stein.
So sole source contracts have been abused. We've got some evidence of problems here and an evidence that somehow the discretion is been improperly used to issue these contracts. Do we have any evidence of that?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Clearly this is to highlight some of this council's disenchantment with the chamber. We have a process to do that. Our budget process works well. We have the highest level of engagement that this council has ever had in its budget process. If indeed we want to not fund that in a given year, we absolutely can do it. We certainly moved around $8 million last time, and if we wanted to move that $300,000 down, a majority of this council could do that. So it seems to me that we are taking a broad stroke to brush an issue that, in the largest sense, it's an issue of trying to fix something that's not broken when we have the remedy to get at the politics of the chamber in another way if we so choose. It seems to me that this legislation is redundant and perhaps may actually inhibit some ability to some flexibility around some technology issues.
Thank you, Councilman Stein. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you. I would respectfully disagree with the comments that Councilman Stein made. because of a historical perspective. Back in my younger days, as Mr. Cooper described, back in the computer software era, one of the tricks of the trade was to get your prospective client to write the specs up so narrowly defined that only your company would have the ability to bid on that contract. So I see the real value of this ordinance having nothing to do with the chamber, but more so having to do with why are we selecting software companies or vendors, and there are legitimate companies that have such spectacular software or hardware that only they can perform certain tasks, and if so, that's what we want to buy. But I would see some real value in this body exploring more in depth. We're talking about 5 contracts in 3 years. And I would very much be in favor of this, just from the sense as, you know, what does this company have that's so special that only they can provide? If so, we approve it. If it's not, then why weren't the specs written in such a way that their competitors would have an equal chance? I'm just very leery of sole source for anything. I like to get 2, 3, 4 bids, and if those are not available, I'd like to know why.
Thank you, Councilman Tiger. Seeing no one else in queue for discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? No. Hand vote. We'll have to vote by show of hands. All in favor? All right, 3.
Okay.
All opposed? The chair votes to oppose.
That'd be 3, 4, 4 against, and 5 abstaining.
The vote is 3, 4, 4 against, 5 abstaining. All right. The chair.
The chair.
Okay. Thank you. The next bill, BL 2012-296, designates 14th Avenue North between Jefferson Street and Scoville Street as Curtis Senior Lane. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
We surrender.
Seeing no discussion, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. We've already taken up 297. Last bill, BL 2012-298, sponsors Matthews Bennett, approves an agreement among the Public Defender's Office, Equal Justice Works, and the Southern Public Defender Training Center for the Public Defender Courts Program. Been properly moved. Do I have a second? It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Bill passes. Councilman Tiger?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to bring 2 points up and just get them on our radar and how you choose to handle this in the future, but I would suspect these are things that need to be handled in the very near future. Number one, we get the monthly report on the budget of Farmers Market, Municipal Auditorium, State Fair, et cetera. And you know, at some point, we're going to have to address the farmers market. They're making it clear that they're expecting a supplemental request of almost $700,000. And to me, I'd like to hear from the administration, General Services that is managing, you know, what steps are being taken to eliminate that, or should we, should this body be looking for alternative methods of management to reduce that? And secondly is the school board issue, the $3.4 million. You know, we've given plenty of time and I know attempts to reconcile with the state, but lacking that, I would like to know what the school board's plan is to balance their budget. And I think this body deserves to know that sooner rather than later.
Yes, Councilman Tiger. To your first point, to the farmers market, we could definitely speak to the head of the farmers market and the administration, see if we could schedule for them to come before our committee and the body. To the second point, I will speak to the school's budget chair, which is school board member Will Pinkston, to see if they are prepared to speak to the issue of the $3.4 million and what plans they have put in place or will be putting in place to address that particular loss of funding for the year. So. Thank you. You're very welcome. Councilman Garrett?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like for John to tell the council so that they'll know ahead of time, just tell them if this council's, you and I had talked about this before, about the $3.4 million. Is that going to come before the council? I don't want to belabor the point, but will you just tell everybody what's going to happen?
If those funds are made up, essentially, then yes, the council would have to appropriate those funds from fund balance or from some other source.
All right. We are adjourned.